What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here coming back at y'all with the 2 minute drill. It's our first 2 minute drill where we got the full crew together. We got our boy B Dub back for his first 2 minute drill, and I don't think he could have picked a better episode. We have our Jackson State coverage to kick off the week, man. April 12th, 2021, guys. And it was an interesting weekend to say the least. I mean, Jackson State, man, loses their third straight game after a 3-0 start, 52-43 to Alabama A&M. And Brandon, things have gone bad to worse for Jackson State. After the game, Deion Sanders preached about changing the culture and accountability if things go wrong due to your mishap. Some of the quotes he had were pretty out there. I mean, he said to change the culture, you got to change the people. So it sounds like there's some people's jobs who are at stake toward the end of the season. And then he said, if you don't do your job, what should happen? That is this kind of business. That is how it is. And Brandon, he's been very critical of recent performances and even said, so I don't know how many people know this, the saying for the team, they have a bunch of merch and everything that the quote on it is, I believe. So it's a lot of I believe talk. That's like their team chant. And he said there's a whole lot of I believe people in here, but not a whole lot of substance behind what they're saying. And he said that if you don't know how to respond to adversity, then you can't say I believe because you're not working. So Brandon, what was your initial takeaway this weekend from this game?
You know what's crazy, Zach, is that I thought that by removing their starting quarterback, going with I forgot his name, the new guy, this weekend,
Quincy Casey.
Quincy Casey, I thought that was a weird move, right? I thought that was one of those things where, like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I don't think that was their issue. Up to this point in the season, quarterback wasn't the issue. It might have been this rush defense. I think is maybe the biggest cause of the last two losses. Up until this one, I don't. Well, I guess we'll get into it a little bit later, but it's a weird move. I don't know. It seems like what Deion said after the game might be more in his head than anything. And I know it's a weird take to have, but I don't know who we need to blame for this loss or even the past two when we're just switching things around. I mean, yeah, some people's jobs might be at stake, but for why? They started out the season 4-0. I think, this is a take I'm going to stick with. I think they started out the season 4-0. Everyone's on fire because Deion comes in, brings this all-star cast. They drop one game and they don't really know how to recover from that. And I think that's kind of the road they're down right now. I think they have to find their footing again because this is a quality team, man. Jackson State. It's fun to watch them. It's FBS 1AA, but man, I'm watching the week in, week out. That's not normal for me.
Yeah, there were a lot of issues. I think we dropped an episode Wednesday talking about the QB change when it's announced, either Wednesday or Thursday. And I'm just like, man, like I get the move. Quincy Casey's very talented, very inexperienced though, but man, can he play defensive tackle for you? Can he play middle linebacker for you? How about the offensive line, which has been my biggest gripe, Brandon? It's just the offensive line has been abysmal for this Jackson State team. I believe they gave up 4 sacks again this weekend. So that problem's still there. But, you look at this weekend, though, it wasn't their rush defense, but I don't think Alabama A&M really tried to rush the ball that much. To be completely honest with you, they did it all through there. We're going to get there in just a second because there's a player everyone tuning in knew we were going to have to talk about. But I thought the Jackson State defense did a decent job. I believe the leading rusher for Alabama A&M averaged about 5 yards a carry, which, Brad, it's a bad rush defense when I'm like, man, 5 yards a carry. Y'all really did y'all's job this weekend. And they did it really well in the first half, but they kind of fell down the stretch. But I want to talk about a kid for Jackson State who I was really impressed with. And, he was on the practice squad, Brandon, all through the first few games of the year. And that's Santee Marshall. Listen, we're going to get to the Quincy Casey, Jalen Jones debate here in a minute. But, man, Santee Marshall has to be given a lot of the credit. He rushed for over 120 yards, averaged almost 7 yards a carry, had a touchdown. And I feel like, Brandon, he took so much pressure off of Quincy Casey, and it's a run game that I don't think Jalen Jones has had the fortune of having through, his half of this losing streak.
Right, right. I mean, I agree with you there, Zach. I mean, the kid's talented. I think he adds a lot of value to the Jackson State team.
Yeah, and before halftime, they asked Deion Sanders where he came from, and he was like, "Yeah, we don't know where he came from. We just brought him up from the practice squad one day, and he's turning up now on everybody." But Warren Newman, too, for Jackson State, had an absolute just amazing game. 9 catches, Brandon, 4 total touchdowns for Newman, and he was he reminded me so much of, this is going to sound, I'm not saying he's just like this guy, but he reminded me a lot of Rondale Moore, where they just kind of dropped it off on him. And Brandon, he made 1 or 2 guys miss, and then he did it himself. And that's kind of what we see with someone like an Elijah Moore, Rondale Moore, which they're kind of small, but if you get them the ball underneath and just some open space, they're going to embarrass you. Like, he stutter stepped a dude in open space. I believe the first or second quarter, and just this kid's ankle is still somewhere on that field.
He lost it. Well, it's to be determined as to where it is. But man, that's one of the things I did notice about this game in particular, is that we see a lot of big plays like this from each team. We don't see a whole lot of, consistent driving down the field. We're seeing these big stars. I mean, these kids trying to make a name for themselves out in the open field, doing these stutter steps. I mean, making these huge plays. I mean, how many touchdowns over 20 yards did you see yesterday from either one of these teams? I mean, it was.
Yeah, I mean, it was back and forth, Brian. I mean, it was honestly where Alabama A&M would score, Jackson State would answer, then Alabama A&M would score in a 2-play 60-yard drive like they did right before, I believe, halftime. I mean, it was spectacular. Dalen Baldwin, though, for Jackson State is going to be a star, man. Out there at the main wide receiver 1, he made that amazing one-handed catch last week against Southern. He was their leading receiver this week again. I feel like, man, what Jackson State did better than they did, in their few games with Jalen Jones, is that they got the ball out of Quincy Casey's hand. They didn't let him sit in the pocket, have to run complex routes and everything, and the offensive line didn't have to block for as long. But when they did, Brandon, they still gave up sacks. They, outside of Santee Marshall, they really didn't establish a running game with anybody else. But Casey had 300 yards, Brandon, 4 touchdowns. He completed over 63% of his passes, which is an amazing, stat line for a first-year quarterback, or for a first-start quarterback. But I don't know if this game should have an asterisk or not. I would like to get your opinion on this. Alabama A&M is not known for their defense. They're a powerhouse offensive team. We saw that these guys have NFL-ready dudes on offense, but they do have, a few good defensive pieces. But overall, they're not a dominant defensive unit. Do you think next week against Prairie View A&M, do you think Casey has to prove it again next week, or do you think Deion should revert back and go with Jalen Jones for the foreseeable future?
That's going to be tough, man. Because like you said, this wasn't like they scored 43 points, but this wasn't like you're playing against the stoutest defense in the SWAC. We're sitting here watching them play against a team who is going to outscore you, and that's how they won. I mean, you could have given me over under 100 in this game. I probably would have taken the over. I know they didn't quite hit that, but I would have taken over. No, dude, honestly, I think you have to ride with Quincy Casey one more time to see what he's truly made of. I mean, at this point in the season, you're 4-3. You're not really fighting for that championship like you may have thought after the first 4 games of the season. I guess it's still possible, but I mean, I don't think it's very likely. I think you ride with Quincy Casey, see what he's made of, see if he's going to be your future quarterback. Go from there. I don't think this one game when you're already 4-3 is. I don't think that's taking too big of a risk at all.
Yeah, and I think they're 3-3. I think I'm pretty sure they've only played. I think they're at 500 now, Brandon, because I believe they had the game postponed.
That's right.
Before they were supposed to play. Yeah, so they're 500 now, man. You're looking right down the barrel at being under 500 after an undefeated start where you were ranked at one point. So I think Jackson State has a lot to figure out. I didn't love the O-line play again, man. I still think that O-line is such a big problem. And is that D-line, that rush defense, going to hold up against these run-heavy teams? I'm not sure. And this quarterback situation is going to get so interesting. Jalen Jones has had his shot. Quincy Casey is now having his shot. What happens when you throw Deion Sundin as Sanders, and who was a top 200 recruit, Brandon, who can spin the ball, was committed to FAU, I believe, decommitted, and came to Jackson State. He's not eligible right now, but personally, man, that quarterback room is going to be stacked, and it's going to be sad, but I think Casey and or Jones, the left out guy in that trio, might be on their way out and is into the transfer portal again.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, obviously, Deion's son is going to get the start, man. It's not just because he's Deion's son. It's like you said, it's because he was a top 200 quarterback, committed to FIU. I mean, this kid has D1 talent, and he's playing at Jackson State now. He's going to be a real game changer the second he steps on the field. Obviously, I think there's still going to be a QB battle. We're going to see who's more game ready. Maybe Quincy Casey can prove himself and show that his experience in actual college football games can prove it. Maybe not. That's to be determined. But yeah, I think the third man out is definitely looking toward the transfer portal, unless by some chance Sanders is the third man out. But I could not possibly see that happening.
He would have to play absolutely atrocious in practice, I feel like, to be the guy out. But I mean, I was impressed with Casey, but we're going to cover some more later this week about what happened this weekend and what to look forward to. But man, I was going to have a full episode dedicated to this topic, but I just couldn't wait. I had to talk about this with somebody. Aqeel Glass, man. I don't know. Listen, I'm not even going to lie. I talked a bit about him, I believe, on my preview episode, and I was like, man, this kid's really good. I completely understated how good this kid is. He dominated the game this weekend, guys, and he looks every bit the superstar that some people have dubbed him. Brandon, 67.5% completion percentage, 440 passing yards, 7 total touchdowns with 0 turnovers. That is the key stat. 0 turnovers, guys. And Brandon, he was given the main stage live on ESPN's main channel with the whole world's eyes on him, and he delivered the best performance of his career on the road against Jackson State, the most hyped team in the SWAC, and on national TV. Do you think he's the real deal? Do you think he's a legit NFL prospect for 2022?
I think he is. I honestly do. I don't know if he's going to be a top 10 pick. I don't know if he's Trey Lance level. Coming from Division I AA, but he is the real deal. And I think the big part of it, like you said, is he has this platform where he played on ESPN at prime time. I mean, yeah, the Masters was on. I was kind of flipping back and forth. I need 2 TVs like my man over here. Over there. But, no, I think he's the real deal, man. I could realistically see him being drafted in 2022. Not even like undrafted signing somewhere. I can see Aqeel Glass as long as he continues to perform throughout the remainder of this season, and then again next season. I think he's a legitimate threat, man. I mean, he's the real deal.
Yeah, and you mentioned that. That's a key, too. He's going to play in the fall season for the SWAC as well. So we get 2 full seasons left of Glass. And before he becomes NFL draft eligible, I agree. Watching this, my biggest takeaway, we're doing this Jackson State stuff right now just because of Jackson State. We're starting our SWAC coverage in the fall next season, but I think it's the real deal NFL prospect for next season. I think he's going to be on more people's radars as he moves through the season. I mean, Brandon, just looking at some of the things, I was kind of writing down some of the stuff that popped off the screen. I mean, the screen for me, I think he has NFL arm strength. I know some people question it. I think he can spin the ball. He can make every throw on the field, especially in the clean pocket. For me, my biggest pro, so I like, all these draft coverages have like the pro. Like this is what separates him from everybody else. Right now, Brandon, in this quarterback class, I think he would rank top 5 in this. In not this class as an overall prospect, but this specific trait, his anticipation and pocket awareness is elite to me. I think he would be one of the best prospects in this quarterback class. He was able to manipulate the pocket with his feet. If there was a free rusher, he was able to avoid him, still keep his eyes downfield, make the throw. And that anticipation and pocket awareness is something that you can't teach. That awareness is something that comes programmed in, man. And Brandon, there's another thing you can't teach that I loved about him. When he knew he was going to be on the biggest stage, when all eyes were going to be on him, when all the pressure was going to be on him to outduel Quincy Casey, who was getting all this hype, all this coverage, he said, I bet I'm going to put on my best performance of my entire career and put on a show for y'all as a senior. And, we like to talk hype trains, Brandon. Count me in on the Aqeel Glass hype train. I want to be named the conductor because, Brandon, you said he won't be, top 10 pick. Yeah, that might be a little stretch right now as we sit here on April 11th, and we haven't even gotten to the 2021 draft. I think, Brandon, I think his potential is, hear me out, he could be a top 5 NFL quarterback next year in this next year's draft class.
Yeah, I don't think that's unrealistic at all. I mean, just watching this guy play, and granted, this is the one game, like full game, where I watched him play, and like you said, this was his best performance of the year to this point. But man, his ceiling is, and like no pun intended, is through the roof. Like, it's crazy. This kid, that was so corny. I'm so sorry. But
this is why we don't have him on the 2-minute drill often, guys.
This kicking ball, I know. I'm never invited back.
I mean, so next week, I believe, I'm looking it up right now. I'm pretty sure. I just wanted to make sure I had my facts right. Yeah, they got the Magic City Classic, man, which is the big rivalry with Alabama State, and they're on the road in one of the big. I mean, Brandon, we've passed that stadium. Both of us have driven up. Oh, it's on 85. Right off on your right if you're coming from the south. It is a giant stadium for a Division II team. I mean, it towers over the interstate. It's an intimidating environment. The crowd's going to be lit. The teams are going to be ready. If Aqeel Glass can put on a show against Alabama State this next week, like we saw this weekend, I mean, that's going to further solidify him in my eyes as just someone that I'm like, man, this kid can lead a franchise. And I know there's going to be, Brandon, we have a lot of support for our, SWAT coverage and Jackson State and everything. There's going to be some people who listen to this that have never seen Aqeel Glass play. I want to assure everybody we are not jumping the train too early. This kid's legit. Whether he's a top 5 prospect, that's to be decided. But this kid's going to be on an NFL roster after the 2022 NFL draft. And like Brandon said, it's going to be a draft pick. But as we wrap up this episode, Brandon, we get back to the game. As we, we're going to finish off with our final thoughts here. What is your final takeaway on what Jackson State needs to do going forward to win some football games?
I think Jackson State has to calm down, man. I think their nerves have really gotten to them. I mean, I'm going back to my first point here. They have to find their footing, if nothing else. I mean, you settle down. You remember what happened in those first 3 games that you won. When you were coming out the gates swinging. I mean, everyone's talking about you. I understand the hype can really get to you. Calm down, take a breath, sit back, ball like you know you can, and I think you win. I think you win a majority of your games going through the rest of the season.
Yeah, I completely agree. And guys, like I said I believe last Monday after the loss to Southern, we have to put this in perspective. This is Deion Sanders' first year as the head coach. He has so many guys that transfer from Auburn, that he got from the transfer portal from big D1 universities that can't even play yet, including his son from South Carolina, who was the starting cornerback next to J.C. Horn. Like, let's calm down here. Like, this is still a work in progress. I think, myself and everyone else is a little, I guess, ahead of the curve here by saying they should be ranked in the top 15 of FCS. They probably jumped the gun a little bit, but I think they're on the right track. They have the recruits, they have the coaching staff, they have the players. And like Deion said, it takes time to build a culture. I think Jackson State will be just fine. This next game against Prairie View A&M is going to be very, very interesting. And so we're going to preview that game later this week, guys. But I'm so glad to have B-Dub finally getting on this 2-minute drill with me, man. He picked a great episode. Y'all been supporting us so strongly on these Jackson State episodes, so keep doing it, man. Give us a thumbs up on this YouTube video. It helps us out. It gets this content out here. And as y'all know, man, if y'all subscribe, if y'all are one of our first 100 subscribers, y'all could be eligible to be one of the 5 who get the big Blue Bloods merch pack that we're going to be releasing details with very, very soon. Guys, I've already said we're going to do bigger and better prizes as we get higher and higher on the subscriber list. So make sure to do that. But guys, we'll be back later this week. Check out our Jessica Cootie interview out now. Oklahoma reporter. We talk all things Oklahoma football for our Big 12 in 30 days. And our NFL mock draft 2.0 is out as well. And we have an NFL draft corner with myself and our guy from Worst Tape Network, Headlines. Is his Twitter name, Headlines with the Z. We talk all things Seattle football. So make sure to check that out as well, guys. But for myself, for B-Dub, and the 2 Minute Drill guys, we are out.